Welcome back to the podcast. We had a nice little break. I missed you all, and now we are coming in hot with an interview with Jojo Atanasiu, fire dancer and flow arts aficionado. So, in this conversation, we talk about the magic that happens when a human finds a state of flow. So, you can do it through flow arts, and we really dive into flow arts in this podcast, but you can do it in any other way. And what flow is, it's a state of being where the past doesn't matter, the future doesn't matter. You tap into this higher consciousness, this highest state of you, and it feels so blissful being in the present moment. Highlights from this episode: how Jojo found flow arts 12 years ago when she was really struggling with her mental health. How Jojo uses a state of flow to help make important decisions and tap into her intuition. How being in her fullest expression of flow has helped her overcome issues with body image. How flow can teach you lessons on hypercriticism and fear of failure, and also the proven physiological and mental benefits one can receive when finding flow. You are listening to the School of Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my space to get real, open, and weird about my life experiences as a psychic, medium, energy healer, and student of Chinese medicine. On the show, I'll be sharing my healing journey and the concepts I've learned along the way, and I'll be having guests on talking about the same sort of thing. I am so happy you're here, and I hope this show leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to learn how to listen to the whispers of your own body and spirit. Let's get into the show. Jojo, I'm so happy that we're doing this. I feel like I know it's definitely been a while since we really did the talkie talk and really connect. I feel like we're supposed to be at your apartment on the floor stretching and smoking a joint, but we are separated by time and space. Yeah, what was that?
If only.
It's been a minute. For real. But yeah, with that, I want to give you a warm welcome to the show. I want to welcome everyone who's listening, and we're going to dive right into the flow arts. So I would love to give you the space to share how flow arts came into your life, what it even is. And I really want to hear your inception story with this world.
Yeah, so flow arts has been part of my life now for, I would say, upwards of 11 years. I think I discovered it back in 2012, and it was my freshman year in college. So very tumultuous time for a lot of people, but especially for me. I was going through a lot when I was 18 and just left the nest. A lot of mental health stuff going on, a lot of I don't know what I'm doing with my life and all that jazz going on. Pretty standard stuff for people when they're like that age. And I went to college. I was struggling with my mental health, I remember, and I think I was on Facebook one day, and I ran across a video of a girl that I used to go to high school with who was dancing with an LED hula hoop. And I was just transfixed. Like, it was choreographed. I don't even think it was choreographed. It just like, she was just free flowing with it. She posted a random video, and I just sat there and watched the whole thing. It was like 4 or 5 minutes long. And immediately I saw that and I was like, I need a hula hoop. I need to find one right now. And I need to learn how to do this. And I think I recall literally that week, I like went to a toy store in Winter Park. Like, I literally walked from Ward Hall, our residential area, all the way into town. I went to the nearest kids toy store and I bought like a crappy plastic hula hoop, and I brought it back to the dorm room. And then I just started drilling and just learning random little moves. And I can't even tell you like how much joy that brought me and how much excitement it brought me. And it seems so like silly looking back at it, because I was like a teenager playing with a plastic circle, but like I didn't even realize in hindsight what that was going to lead to later in my life.
Yeah, so, yeah, I know the exact toy store that you're talking about too, on Park Ave. Yeah, I didn't know that it was so I didn't know that you had gotten into it so early in your life. I don't know why I thought that you had gotten into it later on. And that makes sense because you were so good at it. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that because I kept it to myself for a very long time. It was one of these things that I was kind of like almost a little bit embarrassed. I don't want to say embarrassed, but honestly, with my mental state back then, it was honestly like embarrassment. I just felt
Mhm.
uncomfortable being witnessed. I didn't want people to look at me and be like, what is she doing playing with a plastic hula hoop? I wasn't very good at that point. I definitely looked kind of clumsy at the beginning. And it was just one of those things that I just didn't feel really comfortable sharing with a lot of people because it was kind of like a personal practice and like a personal meditation. And I did it more so for myself than to show off or like, it didn't start off at all for that reason. It wasn't, oh, I want to be a performer and I want to show off all these cool moves. It was like, that looks really satisfying to dance. And that just looks so cathartic. And I want to be able to experience what I see that person experiencing in that video when I saw them hooping. Like, I want to be able to like tap into that because I was just immediately transfixed and almost like hypnotized when watching it. And I'm like, I want to experience that myself. If that's the feeling I get when watching someone, I can't even imagine what it would feel like actually doing it. So that was my initial catalyst, springboard that led me into this world. I didn't think I would end up getting into fire or all of these other different props and performing and like all of the different things that it's led to and all the different opportunities that have come up. It literally just started off as a way for me to blow off steam and like not feel crippling anxiety and sadness and just get my mind off of it for however many moments it was that I was playing with my hula hoop.
Mm.
So that's like where it started.
So what exactly constitutes as a flow art?
So flow arts, it's a newer term. It's mostly used in the United States. I don't know if it's not as like widely used in other parts of the world. It's more of an umbrella term that's recently emerged to kind of put all of these different art forms under one umbrella. And it's basically a movement-based art form that integrates dance, juggling, prop manipulation, aspects of martial arts, and just overall creative exploration of movement with some sort of skill-based prop manipulation. So there's always some sort of prop involved. So think like hula hoops, juggling clubs, stabs, poi, just like anything that you could manipulate with your hands, kind of like an extension of your body. So that's what the term flow arts means when I refer to it. Just to elaborate just a little bit more on the aspect of flow, because some people don't really understand or like know what that entails when we discuss like flow arts. So in positive psychology, flow state is basically known colloquially as being in the zone or being like in a heightened state of mental awareness in which when a person is performing some activity, they're fully immersed in that feeling of like energized focus, being fully involved in what they're doing and enjoyment in the activity that they're doing. And you basically just have to have a certain skill level that needs to match the level of challenge that you're faced against. So you can find flow and experience flow in so many different ways. It's not just through these arts. Like it exists across all disciplines in sports, academia, all these different types of art forms. And it's basically where if your skill level is high and the challenge is high, you can enter a state known as flow. If your skill level is not quite up to par with the challenge, you get frustrated. And if your skill level is really, really high, but the challenge level is not so high, you kind of fall in this area of boredom and apathy. So you kind of have to find like that very, very sweet spot where like your skills are right on par with what the challenge is at hand. And that's the area where you can kind of enter into that flow state. Being able to tap into that, which these arts it's kind of like an easy way to tap into that feeling and that state of mind, is such a powerful thing to be able to just do whenever you want. Like there's days where I am physically like having an emotional reaction or I'm like about to have a panic attack or something's going on in my life and I feel like my actual somatic symptoms like flaring up and I literally just grab the hoop. I grab something off the floor and I just start spinning. I just start going with it. And literally within a minute, within 2 minutes, I can feel my body calming down. I can feel my mind emptying. I can feel a form of like relief. Like I just feel like I'm expelling something. I'm expunging something is the best way that I can describe it. And it's just like, it's been incredibly healing for me. I didn't know that this is what was happening until I've, experienced it a lot more. And I kind of did research as to like, what is this that's happening to me right now? Because this seems very, very healthy and beneficial. I want to understand what's going on. So that's kind of how I fell into this whole world. And now I'm just super, super passionate about helping other people find their flow, because it's been one of the greatest things that I've encountered and one of like the most healing things that has come into my life. And I like to share it with whoever's willing to listen to me blabber about it.
Yeah, dude, that's so powerful. And like the way you put it was just so beautiful. Like I can feel your passion through it. And I feel that, hearing you say that, I feel like every person deserves something like this in their life in whatever form they find flow in. Because I think a lot of us, I feel like maybe it's a younger generation thing that's going on right now because everything is so easily accessible, but so many of us shy away from that thing that you see somebody doing it and it's incredible and it's complicated and intricate and you're like, well, there's no way I can ever get there, or it'll take me years. And it's like, no, you'll wish you had started a year ago. You'll wish you had started 2 years ago. It's just, you have to, I like how you gave that specification of the different qualities between it and what's the promise. If you work hard and you stick with it, flow will come.
Exactly. It's not something you tap into immediately. It's something that evolves over time. And it's got to be doing something that you love to do. It's like, you don't want to pick up an art form that you absolutely hate, that annoys you, or that's frustrating to you in hopes of trying to find a flow state. It's got to be something that you genuinely enjoy doing and enjoy learning. It's a way of learning. That's also another thing with flow. It's a fun way to learn new things. And as adults, a lot of times people, like kind of stop wanting to learn new things. They stop reading books, because, you read a bunch of books when you're in college, when you have to take tests or things like that. And as you get older, a lot of people stop learning for the sake of learning because they think it's a tedious thing, or they think it's, like a chore or something like that.
Or I feel like people get stuck in the idea of you have to learn for it to be used in a worker bee mentality sort of way. Like if you're going to read something, you got to make sure it's useful, where this is for the sake of pure play.
Intrinsic value. That's a huge part of it. You have to find something that's intrinsically valuable to you. It doesn't necessarily have to serve a purpose in this capitalistic society. You don't necessarily have to do something in hopes of either being able to start a business with it or have it play into your job or something. It doesn't have to, you can learn stuff just for fun, just for the sake of learning it, because you find it fun, because you find it interesting, because it's something that you think is beautiful, or something that just you're drawn to. And that is a huge thing that also I've taken away from this whole art form, is it just brings back play into your life. I feel like a kid a lot of the times when I meet up with my flow friends, like we just go to the park and we play with toys and we skill share and we dance to music. And it's just like such a fun community of people, of like-minded people that have this very, very healthy and refreshing view of the world, where it's just like a bunch of adults that want to keep play a part of their lives and want to keep learning as a part of their lives. So it's just awesome. I'm so happy I found this group of folks and community.
I am so inspired. And I've been feeling a lot lately that I'm tired of moving my body in a utilitarian way. Like I want to use my muscles and my body and my flexibility in a way that's fun. But I definitely am going to be honest. There is a side of me that's like, I have a lot to do, with school and blah, 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 da, 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 da. And it would take me a long time to get to any semblance of looking good while doing it. So hearing me say that, what do you have to say to anyone who's hearing this and goes, yeah, that sounds great. It sounds nice. I am a busy person though. And I know that it's going to take a lot of time for it to actually be of use or value or to even look good.
So to those people, I would say that's exactly why you need flow in your life. If you're worried about not having enough time or being too stretched thin and you're just go, 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 go all the time. You need to find something that can get your mind off of that. You need some sort of retreat from that. And flow is one of those things that it can come with just very, very few, like you don't have to have like a crazy skill set to start entering that space. You can learn just a couple different moves, just a couple different things, and literally just do those moves. Just start. Everybody starts somewhere. And if it's something that calls to you, just start. And like I started, like I said, in my room, and it was very, very basic stuff. I think I experienced my first flow state literally just like a few days after picking up my hoop. And it was just because I had learned just a few set of simple moves, basically, just like simple things. And I just learned to mix those few moves together in several different ways. And I was just playing off of those same moves. You could literally flow with one single move when you're dancing, like, and just find different ways to use that particular move. It doesn't take a high skill set. It's keep in mind, it's your skill set versus the challenge. If you're setting yourself kind of like a lower challenge goal for your flow state and you have like a lower skill set, you can still achieve that flow by just working on those fundamental rudimentary skills and just weaving those together and just really trying to get into the groove of it. And like I said, it's one of those things you tap into pretty easily because you can literally just pick it up off the floor, like in your room, and just start playing, like start spinning some poi balls around, start taking a stick and just like whipping it around. Or if you have like double stabs, I don't know if you've ever seen people with like swords or nunchucks or even like those two, I don't know if you've ever seen, this is like an introduction to flow when I was like really young, but I don't know if you've ever seen like those two small balls that have like yin and yang on them, and one has like a bell inside that's like higher pitched and one has a bell inside that's like lower pitched, and they're like these balls, they're like meditation balls. You basically just like put them in your hand and you just like kind of roll them around.
Yes.
That it's in and of itself, it's technically a flow art. Like you're literally moving them continuously and you're keeping yourself engaged with what you're doing and you just keep it going and you're literally just flowing with that one move. You're tapping into it right there, you know? So that's what I would tell people. You'd be surprised at how easily you would be able to tap into it. You just have to look for it, basically. It can be elusive sometimes, but it's ever present if you're just willing to look.
I keep on thinking of, have you seen that movie, the Disney movie Soul?
No, but I've heard good things about it.
You should watch it because there's that one point because they're trying to help somebody cross over or something, but they need to reconnect with his soul, and they show how and they were talking about, oh, a great way to connect with your soul is through flow. And they're like, what's flow? And they show,
I need to see this.
Yes, they show people playing the piano or doing art or dancing, and they show where their soul goes to, how their soul reaches this higher connection place, and you see their etheric bodies moving with them. It's really beautiful. And it's what I picture what it is to achieve flow. So off that tangent, have you ever gotten, like if you had a problem you couldn't resolve, or if you were in need of insight, intuition, do you kind of almost use flow as almost like a divination tool or a way to clear out to find answers?
I have, because it helps quiet my mind. So there's been times where I am faced with decisions that I have to make, or I have like some sort of conflict that's going on in my life, and my brain is just filled with a bunch of noise, a lot of different voices, a lot of different, like, what if, or what if you say this, or you should do this, or whatever. And I'm really bad at making decisions, rational decisions, when my brain is cluttered like that. I find that if I can quiet my brain, whatever way that I can, which this is one way that I found that I can quiet my brain very quickly, I find that the answers come to me more easily. Because I'm not coming from a place of fear. I'm not coming from a place of anxiety. I'm not coming from a place of like listening to all these different voices in my head coming at me from all these different angles. I can just calm my body, calm myself, And then when I'm in that space, I tend to be a lot more rational, a lot more deliberate with my thinking, and also just a lot more authentic. So what I truly feel, what I truly want tends to come out when I am in that state. So yes, I have done that before. I have been in situations where I've like been faced with, certain decisions that I have to make, and I just don't know what to do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna flow on it. Just go out there, just like spin it out, and see if I have any revelations, if anything comes to me, if I have like an overarching like thought that just pervades, that just seems like the right way to go. And I normally find those answers when my mind is a lot quieter than when it's very noisy. So yes, I have done that before, which is interesting because I've never really thought about it, but yeah.
I love that you said, let me flow on it rather than let me think on it, because sometimes thinking just, you get nowhere. You get nowhere with thinking. I've become more and more aware of how the mind is like a silly little trickster sometimes.
Yeah. My mind can definitely play games on me sometimes. I'm learning to become better friends with my brain. That's been something I've been focusing on the last several years. And I'm starting to learn how to love my brain, because I used to have a lot of like animosity towards my brain. I struggle with, like mental health things. I've had issues with my mental health since I was young, runs in my family. And I've always been looking for things to help me out and to help me build a better relationship with the way that I view my brain. And this has definitely been one of the things that has helped me out in that arena of life, because it helps me tap into a peak human experience whenever I freaking need it. Sometimes I'm just having the worst freaking day, and I'm like, I want to just feel this. I just want catharsis. I want to just, I want to feel alive. I want to feel the human experience. I just want to feel like life is worth living. And I get that through art. I get that through expression. Everyone gets it in different ways. Some people get it from helping people. Some people, get it from, their family and taking care of their loved ones. Some people get it from their work they do, their vocation. Some people get it strictly just from creating and from making art. And I think art in and of itself is like a very, very spiritual thing. For people, it can be like a spiritual practice for them, because in a way you're connecting with something higher. Like I almost feel like I'm an antenna sometimes when I'm flowing. I'm just turning Jojo off and just kind of letting the universe flow through me, and just whatever comes through comes through. And sometimes I'm surprised by the stuff that comes through. I'm just like, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that was possible. Like, I didn't know I had this in me. I just like unlock all these new different things. And then I become just like in awe of what I'm able to do. I didn't know that like I could do these things. And that is a really, really profound feeling for me. Because when I'm in a flow, I can forget about the world. Time slows down. My concept of self will dissipate, and I just exist, And I think that's like one of the happiest things that you can do. I feel like that's what everyone's searching for,
Yeah. It sounds like, so rather than becoming a different form of JoJo or having an alter ego, it's more you just simply unbecome when you pick up your props and you get into it.
It's a really good way of putting it, because my spatial and time awareness completely goes away. Self-consciousness completely dissipates. This is I think one of the craziest parts of my experience with flow, because one of the things that I've struggled with a lot in my life is, the way that I view myself, body image issues, very common thing that a lot of girls in our society go through. And I'm pretty sure you even remember back in the day about me complaining to you about the way that I feel about myself and how I'm just self-conscious and all of these different things, and the way that I think about my body. And if anything, since then, I don't necessarily think I've gotten any fitter or any skinnier or anything like that. But the way that I view myself has completely changed, because I started looking at my body as less of a thing to be observed and more of as like a tool. And I'm just kind of in awe of like what my machine can do sometimes. I forget I'm the one dancing when I'm playing with fire, or when I'm playing with my props. And I feel beautiful sometimes. Like it's straight up, like it's hard. It feels weird for me to say that coming out of my mouth because there's been so many times in my life where I did not feel beautiful. You know, I did not feel good about myself, and flowing can legitimately make me feel freaking beautiful.
You look
And that is just
beautiful. You
and
are a
like that's an
beautiful person, but watching you flow, the first video I saw that you posted on the internet, I was just because I'd seen you play around when we were in school together, but I'd never seen you. I don't know, it's like you've embodied it. You've embodied it recently in this whole new way. And yeah, I couldn't stop watching. I had to watch that video so many times because it was so beautiful. There was something in there that just like that first video you saw, there was something in there that I was like, oh, I want that. I don't know what it is, but I want it too.
it's just free form expression, and it's the best thing. I know I sound like a freaking broken record when it comes to it, but that's all I have to say about it. You know, like when you're in
Yeah.
love with someone and all you can do is just gush about them. That's kind of like the phase I'm in. Only it's been like this ongoing thing for the last decade.
Yeah. Hey, that's the kind of relationship we want. It's kind of marriage we want, right?
Yeah.
So how has your relationship with flow as well as being in this community? Because it seems like you've made some strides there with that since moving. So yeah, I'd love to hear about what does the community around you look like? What kind of role are you playing in that community as well?
For those not familiar listening, I recently moved to Hawaii last 6 months. My husband is here with the military and I'm working remotely, but it was the move to Hawaii that kind of catalyzed me wanting to get into the community because I moved here without knowing anybody. And I knew that I was about to move somewhere and my husband is probably going to be deploying at some point, and I needed to find some sort of friend group. So I was like, all right, who can I meet up with? What activities can I get plugged in with? And flow arts has been one of those things that's always been there. I've literally always wanted to become part of a flow community. I wanted it to happen in the last places that I've lived, like in Washington and in Florida, but there was this mental block that I kept having. And this was a mental block that I've been actively working through for a long time. And I'm getting over it still. But being perceived and being observed is something that for me is very out of my comfort zone. I've always been a person that's liked to blend into the background. I've never been one that wanted to be the center of attention. I'm always the one kind of sitting in the back, observing. I've always been the observer. I've always been the person, like takes photographs, that, is on the sidelines, that kind of person. And stepping into this different role of being the one being observed and being the one being watched was definitely a thing that gave me a lot of anxiety. But I knew I had to get over it if I, A, wanted to make friends, and B, if I wanted to pursue this, if I wanted to actually get better and actually have opportunities in this arena and learn new things, pick up new props, do all these things. So I put myself out there. I started going to these weekly fire circles that I saw happening on the beach in Waikiki. And that was my first time exposed to like a fire spinning circle. And oh my goodness. I had one of those moments where when I first spun fire, which was here in Hawaii, I was like, okay, this is what my life has been leading up to. This is the moment. I had one of those moments where I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And I just fell in love with the community ever since, and fire specifically, which is something that I've been exploring a lot since coming here. That's been my main thing that I get excited for every single day. I look forward to the weekly jams that we go to. I look forward to the workshops that happened around here. And in terms of things that I'm going to be doing within the community, just in this very short amount of time, I've been approached with a lot of different opportunities while here. I'm actually going to be starting to teach workshops pretty soon. So I'm going to be doing fire fans and fire hula hoop workshops with the performance troupe that is based here. And then I've been busking. I've been performing on the street with friends at like
What?
the Hilton and like stuff like that. Yeah, I've been like doing random performances outside of different hotels out here. I've been meeting other fire spinners. I also met another hula hooper recently that lives super close to me, and she just moved to the island. And we're working on a choreographed performance together that we're going to be pitching to like a corporate event planning company. So there's a lot of things that I'm getting involved in, and it's all creative based, which I freaking love. It's collaborative. I get to meet other people. I get to learn from them. I get to create dances with them. We get to collaborate on costuming and pick out our music and pick out the vibe and like curate like a whole experience. It's just so fun. I feel like a kid again. I used to do dance as a kid. I was in dance from the age of like 7 until 9, and I did tap, jazz. I was one of those kids twirling the batons, which now that I think of it in hindsight was kind of a little introduction into flow arts, baton twirling, which is kind of silly, kind of fun to think about. But yeah, like that's what I used to do as a kid. And we used to like practice choreography. We would pick our music, and then we would, prepare for these showcases. And I was just so geeked out about it as a kid. And I realized as a human adult, I love that I mentioned that I'm a human. As a human adult, I get just as excited for that same kind of stuff. My inner child is just reeling with excitement right now.
The joy is palpable. I don't know if you noticed me yawning when we first were talking on the phone. Like I was yawning a lot, and that's gone. I got bubbly. Okay, a few things with that. So one, I wanted to ask you about the first time doing fire. So I love that you already shared that, because that is something that, again, I think that was a part of you coming out of this shell and to this full expression for people to see. So it's super cool to watch that. And two, it's funny hearing you say that you were always that person that wanted to be in the background and all those things, because while you were saying that, I heard this voice inside me that was like, that's so interesting, because she's always been meant to shine in the years that I've known you. And I'm not trying to just rub your ego here and just make you feel good about yourself. I really mean this. I really believe that, yeah, there's always been this side of you that I've seen, that I've known, like you've always just meant to be more than just in the background, meant to be seen.
I appreciate that. It's a very new feeling for me, for sure. But I feel like it's a more fuller expression of me. I think there's been a secret part of me that's wanted to just freely express myself, but was just scared of the judgment from the world. I have always been very scared of criticism, as sad as that sounds. Like I've always just because of the way that I was raised and certain things that I was, exposed to as a kid. I became kind of hypercritical of myself growing up, and that's something that I've been trying to unlearn. And this has been one of the ways that I have helped myself unlearn that, because with this type of stuff, there's a lot of messing up. There's a lot, like for every trick that I get right, I've messed it up 100 times trying to practice it. People don't see that in the background. It makes you comfortable with fumbling. It makes you comfortable and okay with the idea of failing, because that's part of the process. And I didn't used to be okay with that part of the process. I just kept seeing it as I'm failing. And that's what the world's going to keep seeing. And I don't want to put that out there. I don't want to open myself up to that type of judgment. But hey, even if I do go out there and I light a fire hoop and I freaking burn myself, or I drop it in the grass and like light the freaking grass on fire, like I just keep moving with it. I just pick it up. It's like, oh, oopsie daisy, just dance with it and just continue going. You kind of have to just not let the fumbles define your experience. It's part of it. The only way to get good at anything is by sucking at it first, messing up so many times. And that has also been a thing that I've gotten out of these arts. It's helped me build more compassion for myself and more grace for days where I'm fumbling, days where I'm not getting it right, days where I feel like I'm making negative progress. Like that's part of the process. And I can't let those days and those feelings stop me from my greatness, the things that I'm good at. Because those things that I am good at, the things that other people see in me and the things that I see in other people, like I want to see the other people's greatness. I want to see what they can do. I want to be inspired. And it's another thing about this community that has been very healing for me is just learning from all of the different people, different walks of life, learning their connection to flow, seeing their way of channeling their creativity, and just kind of like playing off of that. It's a really beautiful thing.
It seems like it's both humbled you and released you, like set you free. Like, I mean, humbled you in a sense that I remember the perfectionism and how you were really hard on yourself in school. And it's not that you had this big ego. If anything, it was like your ego was constantly pummeling you down and be like, be better, be better. And it's kind of let your ego play as a little kid and have fun with it. So something that you every once in a while you say something, a certain thing, and it reminds me of this memory that from recently. One of my teachers, she invited me to like a really small, intimate women's ceremony, and it was really fun. So it was sacred play. So we played a game. So on one piece of notebook paper, we wrote a question, and then we put it in a basket. And then on another piece of paper, we tune in to the cloud, into each other's heart space. And we wrote something that we believe someone else needs to hear. So I got my own question. When I reached in the basket, I got my own question. And the question was, why are you so afraid? And the answer that I pulled out was, it's time to play more, like be more playful, something like that. And I was like, shit. Yep. It's what a remedy to fear is play.
Totally agree. Play is healing. It's like our natural state. I think it's our natural state of being. If you really think about it, what makes adults so hardened as they grow up? It's not the fact that they can't do these things anymore, because they can. It's almost as if they're shutting themselves off from play because they see it as a child's game. They see it as something that you shouldn't be doing because it's correlated with like naivety or, being unresponsible or what have you, whatever connotations people have with it. And I feel like if more people brought play into their life as adults, the whole world would be a little bit happier instead of being pissed off being in traffic and getting passive aggressive about everything and not having time for fun because that's the type of life that they've decided is like respectable. I don't know. I've been trying to uncondition myself from those ways of thinking because I used to have little bits and pieces of that in me. That's been part of the healing process for me, is trying to unlearn all of these like unhealthy ways of existing in this world that take me away from my true happiness and my authentic self.
Isn't it funny? We adopt these ways thinking that it's going to keep us safe and it's going to make us more of an adult and thus make us more stable and all that bullshit. And it's like, I'm kind of realizing more and more the adult way is this constipated, repressed, scared way of being.
That's a good way to put it. Constipated way. You want to let that shit flow. You don't want to be constipated.
Before I transition into some of the closing questions, is there anything else that's on your heart about flow that you feel that people need to hear?
Yeah, I think so. I would want to harp on like the benefits of it, not just from like my own personal standpoint, but from a scientific standpoint. There's been like a lot of research that has gone into the experience of flow across, all disciplines and art forms. And it's a really, really good thing for your brain to experience. So similar to like how I've heard people say that brushing your teeth with your left hand is a good brain workout because you're using a part of your body that you're not used to using. And it kind of helps stimulate that side of your brain. Similarly with flow, when you're doing stuff with both sides of your body and engaging both sides of your body, you're also using both sides of your brain. So it's good for your brain health. And there's a number of benefits associated with experiencing flow, which include increased happiness, higher intrinsic motivation, you're more creative, you can better regulate your emotions, your coordination and your balance improves. So just from like a standpoint of physical health, it's good for you. It's a form of exercise. You can build up that tolerance for failure, like I told you earlier, which, helps you with that learning process, helps you build more compassion for yourself. It helps you cultivate present moment awareness, non-judgment, attention on purpose. So there's just all of these different things to take into consideration when picking up a flow practice and thinking about how it's going to affect your life. I believe, what was the terminology called? There's like a specific part of your brain, from my understanding, I think it's called like transient hypofrontality. And it's basically like the terminology used of basically when your brain is experiencing flow and is in flow, it's experiencing transient hypofrontality, which is a decrease in activation and blood flow to certain areas related to your frontal cortex. So this is your part of your brain that goes into higher decision making, deals with self-consciousness, spatial and time awareness, and your brain becomes very economical, and blood flow only enters areas of the brain where it's absolutely necessary for the task at hand. So it's a very, very good brain exercise as well as a physical exercise.
That's exactly what was on my mind while we were talking too. So I recently learned that where our third eye is actually further, if you go further back to the layers of towards the back of the brain, that's actually where intuition comes from. We think it comes from that higher consciousness prefrontal cortex, but it resides deeper within the brain. And when you can start to shut down that prefrontal cortex, that's that super ego. So it's hyper aware of everything that you're doing and really trying to integrate everything to make the best decision possible. It gets to fucking rest and chill out for a little bit. And that way your intuition can shine through. I was actually thinking of, because I'm always just interested in Alzheimer's and dementia and how brain plasticity, when you're younger, it definitely, your brain is a lot more plastic, which just means that I'm sure you know this, but just for anyone who's listening, is your brain's a lot better at recruiting different areas for the sake of growth. So say if one part of your brain gets damaged or whatever, it's a lot easier for your brain to access other parts of the mind to compensate and all that good stuff, and just healing the mind. But doing coordinated skills, changing things up, working on the left and the right side. If you're right-handed, like working using the left hand, it all contributes to mental longevity. So I absolutely see what you're saying with all those mental benefits. And I'm listening to this book, The Body Keeps a Score, and it's a book on trauma. And
my husband's reading that currently right now.
He's the perfect person to read that too. And talking about how certain parts of the brain shut off, and it's like we start to time travel back to that trauma, and we're unaware of what's actually happening in our brains. And the author, he talks about how having your client recall that traumatic episode isn't necessarily always going to help them overcome that trauma. Sometimes you have to come at it from a somatic point of view. And in the very beginning, because I've been really looking into somatics and working with a somatic therapist. So my brain's been thinking about those things. And in the very beginning, you're saying when you were in a really hard time in your life, and all of a sudden you pick up a hoop and things get better, like you feel just better in your body. I wonder how, in terms of healing somatically, where flow state takes a role in trauma healing.
I think it's something that's going to be integrated into medicine soon, in all honesty. Like, I've been seeing more research coming out about it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be through, like the flow arts. It can be through painting. It can be through different, arts. There's a reason why these types of therapies exist: art therapy and horseback riding and equine therapy and all of these different things. It's because it taps in to that exact thing that you were just talking about. And I think that's the direction I think healthcare is going to be heading in. It's going to be heading into like a more holistic, all-encompassing approach, not just, give them a pill and hope that it like levels out the chemicals in their brain. A lot of the time it's our actual spirit that needs help too, our actual physical brain that needs to build new pathways in order to think differently and get out of those ruts that you're stuck in your brain, those trauma ruts, those stuck thoughts that people have. And I think this is one of the way of helping reprogram. It's a way to help reprogram your brain. It's definitely an aid to that. And I'm excited to see like where mental health goes in the future, and to see if there's going to be like an integration of the flow arts with it, because I think that would be something revolutionary, in all honesty, because it's something that has been a huge part of my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's other people that have had the same experience as me. And now we just kind of need to like find a way to create like a model out of it or something to try to help other people go through this, follow through with the process of finding a flow practice and see the way that it affects them on like an actual neurological and physical level. I would love to see like more science done on these types of things because there's something magical happening there.
Yeah. And it really just everything that you've been saying, what keeps on repeating in my brain is just how flow arts really enable someone. The goal isn't joy and happiness and all that stuff all the time. It's more of the goal is to have a life that's worth living.
I agree.
Jojo, I love you and I love this. I really wish we could hang out right now. I mean, we are. Yeah, we are.
Virtual hangouts across the planet.
Yes. So, moving into, and of course, if anything else comes up with on the outside of these questions, we can still dive in. We got time. But one of my closing questions is, because food therapy is such a magical piece to my life and my healing, I'm always interested to know, what is a food that you have found incredibly healing in your journey?
Thing that comes to mind for me, and this is going to sound kind of funny because I live like on an island, so you wouldn't think I'd be into this, but I love soups a lot. I grew up on soups. My mom used to make a lot of soups, and it's just like this comforting, warm, I don't know, it's like a hug in a bowl. And I anytime I'm feeling like down or that I need something comforting to eat that is nourishing but also like good for me, I throw together a soup, and it just brings me back to my childhood and also reminds me just like of my family and my parents and my mama growing up. So I think soups is one of those big ones.
We're the third person to make soups your incredibly healing food, so not silly at all, right on brand.
The Eastern European in me is really shining right now.
Yes. Last question is, what is a darkness that you are either currently moving through or have found yourself recently on the other side of?
I wouldn't say I'm completely on the other side of it. I'm working on getting to the other side of it. And I have kind of alluded to bits and pieces of, this darkness, this challenge earlier in the podcast. But primary thing is issues of how I'm perceived and the way the world sees me. It sounds vain, but it's a thing that I feel like a lot of people experience and aren't always comfortable talking about, but I've become very comfortable talking about it recently because I'm trying to like move through it and get past it. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've been working through, is trying to live authentically, be myself, do the things that I want to do in life without fear of judgment of what other people may think about me or preconceived notions they may build about me. It's not my problem and it's not my issue what other people think about me, and that used to be something that used to weigh on me a lot. I used to take people's opinions very, very seriously and to heart, and like I would let it destroy me sometimes. I would let what people thought of me completely pummel me. I would tune out 100 compliments and just hone in on one criticism that someone would say about me, and that would just like completely just like cripple me. And that's something that I have been working through, and I feel like I have definitely made a lot of progress through it, through a lot of the things that I've been doing, a lot of the activities that I've been taking place in, putting myself out there. I'm working through it. I'm not on the other side of it yet because I'm still human and my ego is still very much there. And my ego sometimes, is a little crybaby. So I have to try to talk to my ego like she's a little girl sometimes, and kind of like, basically talk to myself like I would talk to a child if a child was having these thoughts. Because if someone were to be mean to a kid or something like that, like you would of course come up to them and be like, don't listen to them. They're going through their own thing. their perception of you is not the reality. You are so much more than what other people say and think about you, and there is so much more to you and your potential, and everything about you as a person is beautiful. And you have to be okay with being yourself, living in authenticity. I think that's the biggest takeaway. I'm learning how to live authentically without fear of people's judgments. It's a work in progress, but that is the darkness that I would say I'm moving through right now.
Fucking well put, Jojo. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's the thing that ideally everyone should move through in their life. And not many people have the courage to, number one, move through it and face it, but number two, to talk about it. And I really think that saying things out loud is the remedy for so many, not just the individual, but for our society as a whole. It's partly why I wanted to do this podcast, to just talk about things that are just brewing for way too long that I knew deserved to be out in the light. And it's like your ego, even though it's a little baby, it deserves all that love, and it deserves to be out in the light as well and to be seen.
We all do. Everyone has greatness in them, and I am always excited to see other people's greatness. I love witnessing other people's greatness.
Oh, I love you. And I love your greatness.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. Is there anything else that's bubbling up before we officially close off?
Nothing particularly, just gratitude for being able to be here and being able to share my thoughts. And if I got a little rambly at some points, I apologize. But sometimes you could get rambly when you talk about things that you're super excited about.
And sometimes in those quote unquote rambles is when you're like tapping in and you're sharing what really, really, truly needs to be heard. So thank you for that.
Right. Of course.
Is there any way that people can reach you? And then also, I would love for you to share, for those who, for the few of us that are in the beautiful island of Hawaii. Are you on Hawaii or?
I'm on the island of Oahu.
Oahu. All right. For those of us in Oahu or who want to travel to Oahu, can you share some details about, one, how to find you, and two, about your upcoming workshops?
Yes. So I will be doing these workshops in the Honolulu area. If you're interested in finding me, you could find me online at pyro, pyro .mink, M-I-N-K. That is my handle. I love posting flow stuff, also just different travels and whatnot on there. I'm normally at Sunday fire circles in Waikiki. I also go to the Wednesday circles every now and then. My workshop dates haven't been solidified yet, but I will be posting them on my social media once those dates are solidified. And for those that are interested in joining, we are excited to have you, and I'm excited to flow with y'all and dance with fire, because fire is awesome.